Hey guys, Python Crash Course, Lesson 25. Still talking about classes. Last video was mainly about creating a collection of players and organizing them in a list. That's really all we did. We opened up a directory of JSON files, sent that information into a class to create a specific player, and then just shoved it into a list so that we could keep track of them. Now, I'm going to continue on with this example. I'll leave that there. But I want to talk about, well, how do we keep track of like a leaderboard? Like, a million ways to do it, right? But really, I want to show you guys a pretty cool design pattern. So what's a design pattern? A design pattern is something that is done consistently when you're creating things, like with a class. There's one pattern called a factory pattern, where that just creates items and like hands them out. The pattern I want to talk about is a singleton is one term for it, but the Borg pattern is what somebody came up with, because the Borg in Star Trek, they're all of one mind. So the Borg pattern says everybody knows about everybody else in the Borg pattern, meaning if I update one instance of this class, everybody knows it. So we're still doing typical init. Have to have a constructor, pass in self. So anything I define in here and put it into self will, of course, be known by this instance of the class. If I define something outside of the init function and put it, but still put it in the class, it's called a class variable, and it's global within all classes. So we can leverage this by saying, hey, there's a built-in dictionary in every class, and its reserved name is __ dictionary, like this. And so we can say, whenever we create an instance of this class, we're just going to copy that global class level variable into our built-in dictionary. So anybody that creates an instance of class Borg will all have the same stuff. So let me show you how that works. So down here, we're going to say for I in range 10, we'll use the players array. I'm going to comment this out for a minute. We'll say players sub I. Now we have to say dot append an instance of Borg. I'm going to print out I at the same time. And I'm also going to say that the last item that we just shoved onto the list with -1, we're going to create an ID and we're going to set it equal to I. So I think everybody can agree that if I run this loop, I will print 0 through 9. Players sub whatever, we will get a new instance of that Borg class up here. And then I'm also setting everybody's ID equal to a unique value. And so here I'm going to loop again for I in range 10. So we'll loop 10 times, 0 to 9. And we'll print players sub I. Well, let me do it the right way. For P in players, print P. Might as well leverage the power of that loop. Oh, great. Well, to print out an instance of the Borg pattern, you know what we need? We need a string method. So this is an empty string for k comma v in self dot the built-in dictionary dot items to return a tuple. We'll say s plus equals this so this is casting k to a string in case it's an int or a float or whatever value. And I gotta confess that I've been using this as a variable in some of my string methods, and it's a data type, so we need to get away from that. Cast the value to a string, throw a new line on there, and of course we need to return s. Yeah. And so here's the IDs we printed out originally. Print I. So everybody got a unique ID, but when we print out the players, they all have 9. Because the last Borg instance to get updated, so I can say players sub 2 dot ID is equal to 90, 90, 99, and then let's print them out again. Come on, that's cool, right? Alright, so let's do some leaderboard stuff then. So we got our players loaded up. We're going to extend our Borg pattern. So we're going to say class leaderboard, and we're going to inherit from Borg. And we probably should pass in a copy of the player because it needs to know about it. So when you inherit from a base class, you have to explicitly run your base class constructor. So what do we do here? Let's see. We know we want to pass in a player to our leaderboard because we want the Borg pattern to kind of have a copy of everybody, and we want everybody to have the same leaderboard. Well, my leaderboard's got to keep track of players because the goal is we're just going to sort people by rank. That's the goal. But we need to know, and it's hard to explain. I wish we were in class. Let's say this. Because we still have to kind of construct things, So basically, we know we need to have self.players, and it needs to be a list. Because every time we bring a player in, the leaderboard needs to keep track of this list. Even though this list is going to be available to everybody, we can't, every time we call leaderboard, we can't overwrite the previous value of players and make it a brand new list. That defeats the purpose. So the only time we want to create a new list is if it doesn't exist already. So one thing we can do is we can there's a function called get attribute. There's set attributes and get attributes, and we'll call it on self, and we'll look for the key players. And if players doesn't exist, we'll return a default value of none. So this is like no one is equal to, hey, what this will return, it'll be none if the players list doesn't exist. So we can be assured then that if no one, that's a horrible variable name, is equal to none, then we can initialize players to an empty list. Else we'll just say self.players.append the instance of the player that I pass in. Right? Yeah. So then down in every player, when we create an instance of the leaderboard, hey, we just send them a copy of ourselves. Alright, so now we need a way to print out the leaderboard. And this video is getting long, and I already have a string method written. problem is, it's not a problem. You want your leaderboard. I mean, I'm not forcing this example into the singleton thing or the Borg pattern, but we do want the leaderboard to at least print people out, so that the highest numbers at the top, let's say. So, and to be expedient, there's a method called sorted, so that you can do list like self.players.sort, but sorted is an in-place sort. Well, actually, it returns a sorted instance of the list. You tell it what list you want to sort, and without getting into this because the video is already getting long, but we can discuss it like in our online chats. You can tell it what value you want to sort by, and you can also pass in a keyword argument that says I want to reverse this sort. So what this does now is I'll create a copy of this, and we can all argue about efficiency if everybody is printing out copies of the leaderboard. It's getting sorted every time, but here it'll at least print out the players in order from highest rank down to lowest. So let's go down, and so I don't have to. Let's make sure it runs. So this printed out the player, right? That's all this did. It's not in order. It's not the leaderboard. 1,000, 2098. So there's no order. But if I said players dot or sub 2 dot leaderboard, well, I need to print it out. There we go. So what did it do? Well, let me do some clarification here so we can see what's what. There we go. So first one 3,000, second rank 2098, third 12, 4 1099. Come on, pretty cool. In fact, if I said who's the lowest rank, Bob the Builder, he's the last element. So if I say players sub -1 dot rank is equal to a butt ton, and then we print somebody's leaderboard, we'll print person 0's leaderboard this time, and Bob goes to the top. Awesome sauce. Last Python video. Now we're going to do gaming stuff unless something goes wrong. Alright, see y'all in a minute.